Hi, I'm Steve Hunt, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about starting. I love starting. It's one of my favorite topics to coach and think about and talk about, and I've thought a ton about it. And this lesson called Advanced Starting by Steve Hunt today is brought to you by US Sailing. And I'm really excited to dive right in and get into it. So let's start here. I've thought a lot about starting, and I've taught it for a long time. And there's a bunch of different ways you can think about it. Different coaches will give you different tips and tricks. But the ultimate goal at the end of the day, no matter what you do, is you want to be within 1 second of the line, full speed, close haul at the gun. Ideally, you have a little space to leeward, but if you're really near the starting line, full speed, close haul at the gun, you should be a little bow out on those around you, and you have the ability to put the bow down and go fast or pinch if you want. You can do whatever you want. The race is yours. So let's break this down briefly here. Within 1 second of the line. That means if you went out and did 5 or 10 starts and somebody was videoing you, and you timed how long it took to get to the line at each go, how far off are you? You want to average less than a second. So you're pretty darn close. The other big tip is to be close hauled. It may sound obvious, but most people are turning at the gun. So if you can actually turn up a little bit before the gun and be close hauled before everyone else, you gain on the boat above you, and you actually lift off of the boat to leeward of you, giving you more space. So within a second, full speed and close haul. How do you achieve full speed? You do a little bit of tight reaching or beam reaching before you carve up and hit close haul, and you should be at, or actually sometimes faster than your normal close hauled speed. All right, some key points. You need to set up at the right time near ley line for your desired starting spot. And I don't know if people think about it this way, but I do. There is some spot that you can tack into or starboard tack approach to that when you trim it and go, it's the ley line for where you want to start. And so when I'm setting my boat up, I really think about that and estimate that and visualize that and put my boat there. Another big tip is to not be too close or not be too far away when you set up. If you're too close, you're the sitting duck. You have to get slow, you have to stop your boat, you're nervous about being over. Meanwhile, everyone else sails up with pace, and you can't defend, you can't do anything. You're the sitting duck, and you have no options. If you're too far away, often if there's a lull or a left shift or someone covers you, or you just get your time and distance wrong, you're late. So you don't want to be racing full speed for the last minute or two, and you don't want to be too close where you just stopped. There's some sweet spot in there that allows you to go half to 3/4 speed. And in doing that, you can actually adjust your time and distance. Oh, I'm feeling a little bit late. Let me speed up. Oh, I'm feeling a little bit early. Let me slow down. But you keep flow over the blades. You keep moving. And then when you actually accelerate and hit close haul, you're going super fast. Then within that, you need to manage the hold to leeward of you. As we said, you want to have a little hold to leeward. Everybody knows that. That allows you to put the bow down and go fast if you need to. You avoid the pinching thing right off the line, which never works out that well. So you manage the size of your hole on the boat to your left, the boat to leeward of you. And a lot of people think you want the biggest hole in the world, the biggest hole you can get. I'm not so sure about that in a good fleet. If you have a huge hole, it's like a magnet. Everyone starts to come in there. So I like to manage my hole in the boat to leeward of me. As people want to poach and sneak in there, I keep it kind of small. Once I realize everyone's kind of getting locked around me and there's no more threats, they can't come in to steal it, I start to open it up. So set up at the sweet spot, manage the size of your hole. And then the last one, which is a big point, is to actually see the line well. And to be honest, most people are not that good at this. You need to be able to look back and forth, look at the pin, look at the boat, look at the pin, look at the boat, and actually see where that line is and guess where that line is. Paul Elfstrom, one of the best sailors ever, 4-time gold medalist, said there's an optical illusion if you start in the middle of the starting line, especially on a long line. He said he had to make himself feel like he was a half a boat length over. He had to make it look like he was a half a boat length over to be on the line. So you can have a coach help you with this. You can even have your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister help you with this. Sit at the end of a dock at the yacht club and do a bunch of practice starts. Just get it dialed in. Or you could even do it in a parking lot. Set a 1-minute rolling timer and just try to walk yourself across the starting line and be on the line at go each time with someone telling you how far off you are. So you need to see it and train your eye. So if you have space, you're in the right spot, and you see the line, then you can trim in and go and be near the line, full speed, close, all at go. So money starting skills. You must practice seeing the line with a coach and before the event. And I just mentioned this, but let's talk about how you can actually do it. So 2 days before a big regatta, what we do, we go out and we do some tuning and some training, kite up, kite down. And then our coach, Dave Ullman, he actually sets up a starting line, the length of the regatta starting line. So recently we did it in the Etchells, a keel boat. It's 45 boats. So he set a really long line. And we set a 2-minute rolling timer. And we do a practice start. And we have to be in the middle on the line at go. Well, I'm embarrassed to say that the very first start, we were 12 boat lengths off the line. That's really embarrassing. 12 boat lengths. Luckily, our tuning partner did the same thing. So I don't know if there's a little current going against us or the pin was favored, but it was hard to get there. And so the coach says, whoa, whoa, not even close, 12 lengths. The next start, I put our boat much closer, and now we're 2 lengths off. The next 2 minutes, we're half a length off. And then from there on, we started to hover around the starting line because we trained our eye. And literally what you do is you look at the committee boat, and you look under your boom at the pin, and you start to get a feel for where that pin is under your boom. You know, if the pin's favored, it's kind of forward near the vang. If the boat's favored and you rotate up, it's a bit further back on your boom. It's maybe near the main sheet block. So you get a feel and a look of where it is based on the line bias by doing a bunch of practice starts. And now fast forward to 2 days later, the first race of our regatta. We set up in the middle. We're with the group. You know, you typically want to set up with the group so you're not too far up, too far back. I'm looking back and forth, looking at my watch, and I'm thinking, I think we're really far away from the line. This has that 12 boat lengths away look. So I said to the team, hey, we're going to trim in early. So we stick with everyone. Boom. When I know we can't get there, we just trim in. And at the gun, we were 1 boat length ahead of everyone around us, which is scary if you've ever done that. Most people don't have the guts to do that. But it was scary, and I was just thinking, I'm pretty sure we're not anywhere near the line. Let's just go. We were not over. And we won the first race by like 15 yards. We win the first race of the regatta. Boom. And it's all because of training our eye with a coach 2 days before the event. I would encourage you to do the same thing. All right, let's talk about the next tip. Where do you actually set up to be on ley line to where you want to start and not be too close or too far away? I call it position X. Or if you're doing a port tack approach, you could call it your tacking point. It's where you tack onto starboard tack to start your final approach to the starting line. This place is critical. I think a lot of sailors, especially younger sailors, don't really put enough mental energy into this spot. They don't truly understand where it is they're going to end up when they trim in and go. So you can figure this out with a little practice before the first start, and just by wrapping your head around the concept going forward for the rest of your life. So adjusting position X. What might make you adjust this position? Well, you may be guessing it right, but I'll tell you, the bias of the line, that means what end's favored. If the pin is favored, it's actually harder to get to the starting line. If the boat is favored, it's easier to get to the starting line. So if the pin's favored, you need to set up closer at, let's say, 1 minute. If the boat's favored, you'd set up further away at that same 1 minute. If current's pushing you away from the line, current with wind, you need to set up a little closer. If current's pushing you over, which is a really tough current to start in, I sailed at College of Charleston in South Carolina, and the current ripped. It was really hard to start when it was pushing you over. But if it's pushing you over, you need to set up farther away. And if it's really shifty, maybe you set up a little bit closer. So if a late left shift comes, you're not late. But let me tell you a story to demonstrate that point in a second here, but let's just look at a couple examples. So square line, your wind's right here. We set up here at, let's say, a minute. But if a left shift comes, it's much harder to get to the line. We should actually put our boat closer to the line. Back to a square line here. How about if the committee boat's favored? Well, here we might be a little close at 1 minute, so we should set up a little farther away. Now we have a little current pushing us off the line, making it hard to get to the line. Current with wind. We should set up closer because it's harder to get there. Again, this could be at 1 minute. Or the tough one, like I said earlier, current pushing you over, just making you close distance to the line, even if you don't want to, you got to set up farther away. Here's another thing I came up with that I think is cool. This helps me. You know, when I'm thinking about the line and what ends favored and where I should set up, I think about this. Here we have square line. Here we are, is perfect spot for 1 minute. Left shift. We actually have to set up closer. More left shift. You have to set up even closer. Massive left shift. You got to set up almost on the starting line. If it's so pin favored that you can barely lay the line, you have to set up almost on the line. And I guarantee you, most people don't do it. You know, I watched so many starts. I've been coaching Point Loma High School for 15 years. I race sailboats for a living. And when the pin's real favored, almost everybody sets up too far away. And then they're surprised when they trim in and go that they're aiming at the boat in front of them. And they're not making any ground on the line. Conversely, when the boat's real favored, let's watch this. The wind's starting to shift back to square. Now the boat becomes favored. Conversely, when the boat's favored, everyone sets up too close. Even when they're luffing to slow down, they're closing on the starting line. It's so easy to get to the line when the boat's favored. And that's why when the boat's favored, there's often general recalls. So often when the boat's real favored, I'll say to my team, hey, it's probably going to be a general, but let's do the best we can. You know, we got to set up farther away at 1 minute than we would if the pin was favored. All right, what are some other ways to figure out the line bias? And this example is more catered to, let's say, a shifty offshore breeze, where a lot of us sail in high school and college and junior programs around the country. You're near shore, wind is blowing offshore, it's shifty, right? So how can you be late for a start? Let's say you think you're in a good spot, but you end up late and you're scratching your head why. If you were in a good spot, it's often because there was a late left shift, making the pin more favored, making it harder to get to the line. Or there was a lull, less wind. Now you're sailing slower, it's harder to get to the line. So lulls and lefties make it harder to get to the line. So if it's real shifty, maybe you set up a little bit closer than normal. Or if you notice a late left shift, you put your boat a little closer on the final approach and you have a great start. Let's look at a couple examples here of things we can do to figure out where the wind is coming from in the final couple minutes. If you do a head to wind on a square line, you should be aiming, perpendicular to the line, 90 degrees here. If there's a left shift and the pin's favored, when you go head to wind, your bow will be aiming towards the pin. So just doing a simple head to wind can tell you the bias of the line, and knowing it's harder to get there when the pin's favored, you set up closer. Here, there's a right shift. We do a head to wind, our bow's pointing towards the committee boat. It's telling us that side's upwind, it's the favored end. You typically want to start at the favored end. But knowing what end's favored helps you figure out where to set up. Some other ways, this is high level, but as you sail back and forth from boat to pin or pin to boat, noticing how eased or trimmed your sails are lets you know the shift and what end's favored. Here, we're in a bit of a right favored, race committee boat favored line. As we sail towards the pin, we're going downwind because the committee boat's upwind. It's closer to the weather mark, it's the favored end. It's the place to be unless it's too crowded. So as we sail downwind towards the pin, our sails are eased. But let's say the pin's favored. As we sail towards the pin, our sails are tight. If you're ever sailing towards an end of the line and your sails are trimmed in, so they're not luffing, it's the favored end. You're going upwind towards that end and it's favored. This is a little bit high level, but since I do this, I figured I'd share it. So you can look at luffing sails, like we just said, to figure out how tight or eased your sails are as you sail back and forth. All those things help you figure out the favored end or last minute shifts. But here's another cool way. And this takes a keen eye. But as I'm on port, sailing to my position X, my sweet spot, as I head up to tack, I actually look at the front of the jib. Because if you go above close haul, the front of the jib will bubble, and then it'll eventually backwind. Or if it's your main on a laser or optimist, it starts to bubble as you head up. You go into a normal tack. If that's true and the wind's normal, everything's fine. You're tacking on ley line to where you want to start. Here we want to start here. So we tack here at position X. All's good. Everything's normal. But we're talking about using your angle for a shift. If you head up, and here's your normal close hauled angle, but you keep heading up and the jib doesn't bubble. The jib doesn't start to backwind. You haven't started tacking yet. Something's different. You should notice that. And a great rule of thumb, if you keep heading up and the jib doesn't backwind when you think it's going to, stop turning and just sail for 3 or 4 seconds. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. Let's watch what happens here. If we were to just go right into our tack, we'd end up here, maybe laying the pin, maybe not. But since we notice there's a left shift, we keep sailing upwind for a bit and then tack. Now we're actually going to end up where we wanted to in the first place. We wanted to start a third up from the pin, late lefty, we go upwind for a while. And again, this is a high level tip, but seriously, I have won so many races with this tip because late lefties make everybody late. The pin becomes more favored. It's harder to get there. Their position X is wrong. When they trim in to go, they're like, oh, whoa, I'm not making any ground towards the starting line. Here you are, closer to the line on their breeze, ripping, and you tack right off the line onto the long tack and you're aiming at the weather mark, boom, you're gone. These last minute changes are great opportunities in regattas to get easy points, get a top 5, top 3, just because everybody's late. So I really encourage you to look at your sails as you're going back and forth and do that last minute check as you tack on to starboard. All right, a review. You want to be full speed, close haul, near the starting line at the gun. You don't want to be turning in the last few seconds. You want to nail that close hauled angle for at least a little bit before the gun goes off. It's much faster that way. And then you really want to think about and practice and review where is position X, the point that I need to set up at some given time to end up where I want to be. If you can do those 2 things, you got most of it handled. In the next few lessons, we'll talk about some other tips and tricks to make that happen. For example, having a process that you do over and over again that'll help you repeat great starts. So good luck. I hope this helped you. And if you do well and you keep getting better and better, maybe you too will win a gold medal like Paul Forster and Kevin Burnham here and do a backflip off your boat as you cross the finish line. Happiest you've ever been. Well, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. And if you did, check out stevehuntSailing.com for more. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next lesson.